Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Conversations from Stritch. Dr. Christopher Sint, our provost, and I are here today. And today we're really excited. We're going to be able to talk about a new accreditation for a program that's been at Lewis. But before we get to that, we have a few things about spring semester that we want to talk about. Sometime in the next hour, all of you should be receiving an email from me. We're not quite halfway to Thanksgiving, but just about there as we wrap up the 5th week and move into the month of October, which for me is significant. We made it through September. As students, faculty, and staff, you've just done an amazing job in terms of how you have approached the COVID-19 situation, the online learning situation, and I've just been so impressed, which I have said before, but I want to say again. So one of the key things in the letter, though, that I'm sending out really probably as we speak from my office is about what people should expect in terms of the spring semester. So we've gotten a lot of questions, and of course we're only a few weeks away from registration. And so that's a big thing because students, of course, want to know the kind of class that they're going to be registering for. So I'd like to turn it over to you, Chris, because I know you've been working with the faculty, and I guess I do want to say that. Again, thanks to you. Thanks to Dr. Ann Rapp, who's been on the show before. Of course, all the deans and all the faculty and department chairs who have tried to put together a schedule that really meets the many competing needs of the institution. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what spring will look like.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, and hello, everyone. And I will just start right off with talking about the planning for spring. I guess the first thing I'll say is that we are announcing today with President Livingston's letter that our both the calendar for the spring as well as the approach that we're taking for the spring, and especially in regards to the approach, we will continue to study and learn how things have been going this semester. We waited as long as we could feel comfortable with in terms of making these decisions and making the announcement about the spring semester because as all of you who are attending classes, teaching classes know, and just being part of the campus culture this semester, every day that goes by we learn a little bit more about how we are responding to the pandemic and how the learning experience is going on in the class. So we wanted to wait as long as we could to take in information about the experience before making too many decisions about the spring. And that said, we will continue to learn and listen and make adaptations for the spring semester. So this is really somewhat preliminary, but we'll start with the facts that we know and can announce today. So if we could show the first slide about the calendar, the biggest parts about the calendar are noted here. Our university will reopen on January 4th officially, but instruction will not begin until Tuesday, January 19th, which is the day after the Martin Luther King holiday. Just effectively that extends the Christmas vacation or the Christmas break by 1 week. And then a little further down the calendar, you'll see that the spring break has been collapsed a little bit, or a few days have been eliminated from spring break, so that there is now a midterm break on March 11th and March 12th, Thursday and Friday of that week. And the rest of the calendar is actually the same as originally planned, with Easter days off coming in the typical way, and the end of the semester and commencement happening on the same time frame as we had originally planned. There are many reasons for these changes, and I'm sure you've been hearing about similar changes at other universities in our region and across the country in the last couple of weeks. But we want to allow for more time for students and their families to be together during the Christmas break. For most students, that will include the time after Thanksgiving and the online session that we have planned for between Thanksgiving and the Christmas holiday, and then extending into that week after the Martin Luther King holiday in January. That allows also for more time for students to move into campus at the beginning of the spring semester allows us a little more time for flexibility and safety, to do whatever testing we might have prepared for that at the time. When as we get closer, we'll have a lot more to say about that. And we also want to minimize the travel that our students do during the semester as well, so that while there are still significant time off during that midterm break and during Easter, we also, we're not putting any strictures on travel or anything like that at this time. We do want to at least communicate that the community is at higher risk if people travel a lot leave and come back after vacations. So we're minimizing those as much as we can, while also recognizing and knowing that people need breaks, they need to rest, they need to be with their loved ones, and so on. So we're trying to manage that as well as possible. So I'll pause there and ask if you...
Well, I guess what I wanted to just follow up on that, I think that these are key. Every show that we've been on, Chris, we've talked about the balance between kind of, educational excellence and delivering a great experience and the public health and safety of our community. And as you worked with the deans and the faculty on developing a spring schedule, it was still that balance. And it feels to me like, part of what we're saying to people is spend the time with your family, enjoy your family over Christmas. You're going to be, there'll be a few students who are on campus, but very limited students who are on campus after Thanksgiving. So from Thanksgiving until, right after Martin Luther King, that ends up being almost 2 solid months. So enjoy that time. But as you mentioned, the testing, the potential for if somebody is, in a situation where they need to be quarantined at the beginning of the semester for some reason. We don't know what spikes could happen as everybody goes indoors. So I know all these things have been taken into account. And then really trying to just push through in the spring semester. So start a week later, but then push through till, but we do have 2, I guess, extended weekends. We have the Easter weekend, which is traditional for us, and then that extended weekend for spring break. And I think having both of those, experiences will allow people, almost every month to have a 4-day weekend, but also try to really protect the community from itself. I mean, we don't want to be a vector of infection. And I guess, the one thing I want to say, Chris, is I know we added an additional time where we're reporting cases. So the web page has that. But we've had the number of cases on Tuesday was 1 employee, correct?
It was 0, but there will be 1 tomorrow.
Okay, one tomorrow. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we've had a really good set of reports, and it speaks to what we've done to date, and what you're trying to do is extend that into the spring semester.
That's exactly right. We are learning from that experience and learning from the ways that we are being successful with keeping the community safe, and we want to be able to extend that. I also want to say now, as we transition to maybe looking at the next slide and thinking about our approach, we're also learning so much about, as I said before, about the educational experience of our students and what it's really been like for them, and hearing a lot of feedback already. We've had a great student panel, by the way, with student leaders on Tuesday this week. I'm going to be sending out also, I think this afternoon or maybe tomorrow morning, a survey to all students about their experience that will really help us make a lot of nuanced decisions about the spring. But here's a few things that we just want to throw out there. These are really design ideas as much as announcements about specifics. But January 17th is 3.5 months from now, is that correct? Yeah, 3.5 months. And so we are making a lot of assumptions. We are assuming we're going to be in phase 4 of Restore Illinois at that time as we are today. Of course, that could change. There could be improvements or backward sliding around the external circumstances around how COVID-19 is doing in our environment. A lot will happen, and we'll continue to talk and make announcements every week about how we are approaching the January and the spring semester from a health standpoint. One thing we know for sure is that this pandemic won't be completely over on January 17th, and so that ability to be flexible, to be able to go quickly online is key to our planning for the spring. Similarly, or on the other end of that same spectrum, we know we will start that way. We have some hope that there will be options by the end of the semester in the spring that will have more flexibility around being able to be on campus more, to maybe extend class meetings and the like. We don't know that for sure, of course, but as soon as we move through the registration period and have a schedule set up for the spring and have that accomplished, we are going to start modeling other ways of meeting and expanding the ability for students to engage in classes and on campus in the spring, in the hope that we will be granted that opportunity to meet more or to do more, have more options about what we can do. We will, in our scheduling for the spring semester, try to provide more opportunities for blended educational experiences. In other words, the one-day-a-week classes one-day-a-week face-to-face meetings that we have in our hybrid or blended delivery. So we're going to try, we are somewhat limited by the classroom capacities and by the keeping people's distanced and keeping classrooms somewhat distanced during the key time blocks that we typically would have classes from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon are popular. We are going to extend the schedule out to 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and students can choose to enroll in those classes, and we kind of need to work together to determine if students will choose to attend more classes if they're offered throughout the day. And we know students have work schedules and all kinds of other responsibilities. So we'll see how that goes, but we're going to provide more opportunities for that.
So it seems like one of the principles, and I know this has been a principle that you have said multiple times on this show and in your letters, is we so value the kind of generosity of spirit and flexibility that the community has shown. Because your point is 3.5 months from now, things could be very different. So 3 weeks from now, student might register for the calculus class and it's in a hybrid format, and 3.5 months from now, it might be in a different format, or we might be able to expand the face-to-face option, the amount of time that they have, because we don't know exactly how this virus is going to move over the next 4 months, or really over the next 6 months, because we have to think about March, not just the end of January.
Yeah.
So this goes back to the previous slide, but there was a question that came in, Chris. I don't know the answer to it, but you might, or we can get back to somebody on it, which is about move-in day. So it's not just about classes are going to start the day after Martin Luther King, but move-in day was scheduled for 10 days
earlier
before
than
that, right? Is move-in day going to be moved as well?
We do not have a specific answer to that question yet, but we will definitely report on that, and probably as early as next Thursday. The concept is that we would have move-in day similar to what we did in August, where a single day or 2 days became a week, or 4 or 5 days, so that there's more spacing in between the families that are coming on campus and going through that really important process. It's a little bit less intense in the spring, as you all know who are watching, because people aren't bringing their stuff home. They're really just coming back to campus. So that's a factor in it. But hopefully more students will be coming onto campus as well. So it's complex. There are also certainly some students who will need to come to class sooner than January 17th because of a clinical placement or a educational placement or something like that. The outside learning, again, as we've talked about a lot in this show, sometimes we don't dictate the timetable of that. So we'll certainly have housing available to people who need to be on campus through the break or before January 17th.
Well, and we do want to emphasize, we had a long conversation about athletics maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, but the tentative plan right now is still that we will have athletic competitions, practices beginning in earnest for that spring semester, as early as right after Thanksgiving. So there will be some athletes that'll probably be living on campus throughout the break, and certainly some athletes that'll come in, as you said, the campus will open up on January 4th. that's, there'll be student athletes that'll be moving in early. But I think the question was really around the general student population, and that we'll get to next week. We'll have a kind of
Yeah.
more clear answer on how that'll work. But, most of you that are watching are going to forget it if we say it today about what's going to be happening in January. So we'll remind everybody, and of course the RAs and the people that work in that area.
Sure.
We'll communicate with people in early January about what their obligations are in terms of signing up for a move-in date.
Great. So if we could look at that next slide, that would be great. And we've mentioned so much how appreciative we are for people's ability to be flexible. And that being said, I want to say really clearly that one of our goals for the spring is to have a much more stable environment for students to know what their classes are, know exactly when they're going to meet, know whether they're online or hybrid, and have a high probability that that will be consistent through the end of the spring semester. It's a very different situation now than it was when we were planning the fall semester. All of our returning students registered before right as the pandemic was beginning, and we redid all of the fall schedule, after learning about how Phase 4 works and during the summer and things like that. None of those complications are likely to exist in the future. So we really want to emphasize that the spring will be different in that way, that we will do our best to keep the class schedule and the modality the same as it is when we offer the schedule for people to register, knowing of course that things could change at any moment, but it will be more of a global external environmental change to us, needing to go online or something like that, more than the very individual set of evolution of our schedule that happened for the fall semester. We also have heard from the community, especially students, that for online and blended courses for the online portions of our blended courses and for our online courses, that synchronous instruction, in other words, instruction that goes on where the whole class is together, learning with the professor in real time, is more effective, or for more students, is more effective and helpful. And so we're going to do our best to increase the number of those opportunities, or the number of courses where that's the primary mode of delivery. And then finally, I'll just say what I've said a few times already, but we just are so much interested in people's experience, how it will really change. A semester is really an arc of experience, and people feel differently in the 9th week than they do in the 5th week and the 1st week. And so we really want to know how this is all going for people as the semester goes on. And we are, as I said, I'm sending out a survey to students today or tomorrow, and we'll continue with other smaller questions and surveys and focus groups of students, and continue to hear from faculty and talk with faculty about how it's going for them as well. And I've been really emphasizing today the classroom experience and the schedule, but that same spirit of interest and creativity about making the spring great is true for the student life experience and the co-curricular activities and so on as well. So I don't think there are more questions have come in about this, so I'm going to switch gears unless you want me to.
Good.
I just want to make a couple of more announcements before introducing our guest, who's been very patient as we've been talking through this stuff. I just cannot go a week without reminding people to stay vigilant about everything that we repeat, in our messaging over and over again around face coverings, hand washing, and physical distancing. I just want to emphasize again that the app, the Lewis U app, is essential to our work and to keeping our community safe. And so continue to use that to do the daily health screening, and a reminder that part of the Flyers Promise is a responsibility to report positive cases when you know about them. So use the reporting function on the app, and that really helps us be able to respond as a whole community. President Livingston mentioned that we have revised the website tracker, and so we now I think I maybe said this on Thursday, but on Friday our first new design went live. So we are now tracking in addition to the number of new cases in the community, we're tracking the percentage of residential students who are in quarantine and the percentage of residential students who are in isolation. And then starting this week, we are now updating that twice a week. So we updated it on Tuesday, and we'll update it again tomorrow. And the last time I checked, which was several hours ago, there was one new positive case of an employee and 0 new. Oh, thank you for that. So this is Tuesday's numbers. So starting tomorrow, I think, and again, we wait until tomorrow morning to do the final tally. But I know there's one more employee case this week, and the percentages are at 3.7 for residential students in quarantine and 1.0 for residential students in isolation. So that continues to evolve and look good. But again, it really requires that everyone participate in the process, use the app, talk to our hotline. It's especially challenging, I know, during allergy season and as other colds and the flu enters into the dynamic. We really still want to hear from people if they have symptoms and need support in kind of sorting through how to interpret those symptoms.
So 2 quick things. One is I want to acknowledge and admit that one of the hard things is holding these 2 things in tension, because I really want to say to you, your team, the entire campus, I am so impressed with the few number of cases we've had. We don't want any cases, but we've really, we keep seeing zeros that pop up or zeros and ones. Really great, and it's because the community has really stepped up. And so when you say that, it can make people feel like, oh, it's great, we got this. And your point is, we got to remain vigilant.
Yes, absolutely.
So holding these 2 things, patting ourselves on the back and continuing to be vigilant so that we continue to pat ourselves on the back 2 weeks from now and don't have significant increase in cases. We did get a question that came in that I want to address. So the question was, a student typed in and asked about whether tuition in the spring semester will be the same as it has been in the fall, which is a great opportunity for me. And I want to acknowledge, today again, there were some announcements about certain industries that are doing significant layoffs. It feels like a good opportunity to say, yes, standard tuition will be the same in the spring. We have set up a COVID-19 emergency fund for one-time grants for students to address the needs of their family based on the loss of income due to the COVID crisis, and that their parents themselves as a graduate student have been deeply impacted by this in terms of their financial ability to continue to pay their tuition. We've already helped around 600 families. That has been really great for those families, and we're really grateful to our donors for what they've done to make it possible for us to give these scholarships out, these one-time grants. So what I guess I'd want to say is, I assume that the message behind that question is, it's been really hard for me this semester to pay my tuition bill. Is tuition going to be the same in the spring? Because I don't know how I'm going to make it. If your family are in a situation in which you're really worried because you've lost a job, your dad has lost a job, your mom has lost a job, please go to the financial aid office. There's a form you have to fill out to get COVID-19 funds, but there'll be a new set of funds available for the spring semester. So if somebody needs to fill out a form because their situation has changed, and I guess I want to just say, my own, I feel really badly for those people, that heard today that they lost a job, and it, we're a big enough school that there's a real possibility that one of our students, one parent, heard today that they lost a job. So we just, we're with you, we're praying for you, and we have a fund set up to try to help you to accomplish your educational goals. So I appreciate the question, and we have that available to you. But now we have something really exciting to talk about academically. We have a great guest, and we have some really exciting news.
And one tiny announcement before
please.
I do that,
Yes.
which is that we do have a free flu shot clinic tomorrow. And again, just going back to that, we want people to be as healthy in all ways possible, and it really helps us response to COVID-19 as well. So 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow in the field house. And I know students have been making appointments as we've been advertising this for the last couple weeks, but if you haven't done it, it's also okay. You can walk in and get the flu shot there as well. So I needed to get that out, and now I'm really, really excited to announce our guest, who's Dr. Gina Martinez, who is an assistant professor of computer science and engineering and the program director of our computer engineering program. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Chris.
Nice to see you. Thank you
for joining us, Gina.
And thank you for your patience as we've been talking for 25 minutes already while you waited. We needed to get communicate those other things, but we're really excited, and we're going to let you announce it. But I really want to introduce you first. So be a little more patience. So Gina, Dr. Martinez has a bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois and a PhD and master's from the Illinois Institute of Technology. Her research spans is primarily focused on the Internet of Things, which I know you will want to ask her about, and wireless sensor networks. She's published widely and does numerous volunteer activities in her field, including work in assessment, work supporting women in engineering, and she recently served as the chair of the Chicago chapter of IEEE, which stands for the Institute of Electronics and Electrical Engineering. It's a very prestigious volunteer position, and the IEEE is, she can explain, very storied and prestigious, important organization that is dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity, and we want to ask you about that eventually too. So, but we've invited you to join us today because today I think is a special date. So I'll leave you to make that announcement. Dr. Martinez.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. So today is the day that our name appears in the ABET website, abet.org, as ABET Accredited Computer Engineering Program. And it's a rigorous process that we have been working on for around 2 years. And that does put some distinguishability into our program. We are only one of 7 computer engineering programs in the state to have that accreditation. And the other schools are large universities like UIUC, IIT, Northwestern, and so on. So we're very happy to have this accreditation.
Yeah, it's an incredible group of schools to be alongside. So, you know, I want to be one of the first. I sent you that email when we kind of found out, but it's not been announced. But I want to congratulate you and your colleagues for this really impressive accomplishment. And joining the schools that are ABET accredited is a really significant accomplishment. And really, in some sense, changes Lewis. We've been delivering engineering classes and graduating students with engineering degrees, but to be ABET accredited changes who we are.
Yeah. And I just want to say before we go on, you know, congratulations. If we were all together, we'd be popping champagne and having a party to celebrate this. And again, I just want to repeat, you know, to you and to Dr. Klump and Dr. Howard and all the faculty that have done so much work over many years to get us to this place where we can achieve this very prestigious accreditation. Congratulations to all of you who are watching, and especially to you, Dr. Martinez. So now I think we need to ask you to just tell us a little bit about the program and you know, what is computer engineering and how does Lewis do it?
Right. So our computer engineering program at Lewis was first offered in 2014, and we started the ABET process in fall 2017 because you actually can't apply for the accreditation until you have graduates, because they want to see the full transcript of a graduate. And so in fall 2017, we started that process. For a couple years, we had to do readiness review, submitted couple of documents to ABET that they would review to see if we are ready to continue with the process. And in 2019, we welcomed three evaluators to campus, and they interviewed faculty members for the program. They interviewed everyone, administrators or students also. And in fall 2020, we received confirmation that we got the accreditation. So that's a very short history of the program and the process that we went through to get this accreditation.
So Dr. Martinez, can you give me a sense of what a computer engineer does? You said we've graduated students. What kind of jobs do they do? What does a computer engineer do for a living?
Yeah, I'll be happy to give a little bit more information about that, because a lot of people actually are also confused when they hear computer engineering. A lot of the times they just assume I meant computer science, but computer engineering actually is somewhere between computer science and electrical engineering. So computer engineers work with both hardware and software components that are related to computers. So as the name suggests, it's all about computers, but computer itself is a very broad field, right? When we hear computer, we automatically think laptops and desktops, but these days computers are actually smartphones and tablets and gaming consoles, and you can find them embedded in everyday objects like cars and TVs and even microwaves. So a computer engineer designs and builds these devices that are ubiquitous and embedded in our society today. We use them every day. And as a computer engineer, they have to use both the math and the physics background to basically design, like let's say the modern processor chips today may have about 1.5 billion transistors, and they need to understand how to take those and build a 1 inch by 1 inch chip that it becomes the brain of your computer. So I guess that's a very short overview of what computer engineering is about. And that does open up a lot of opportunity for our students because our students need to be familiar with both the hardware and software aspects of electronic devices. So they can go into software jobs after graduation, or they can also get jobs that are more related to hardware and electrical engineering. So far we have had students gain jobs as software engineers. We've also had students who went into more hardware sides, such as controls engineers, and we have someone who is interning at ComEd at the moment. So various fields that they can go to.
And that slide that was just up there, Gina, this is, we have all sorts of people watching, but again, sometimes it's a student of ours watching or a faculty, and their niece might be considering what to do. So $73,000 as a salary is a significant salary. And so are computer engineering jobs, the kinds of jobs that are in that first bullet, are they increasing? Is there demand to be, for these students that are graduating? And what does ABET accreditation mean in terms of the ability of our students to compete for jobs, in this field?
Right. So I think there's definitely, an increase in the jobs. The landscape might change over time. For example, these days, the buzzwords of Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, rather than the classical electrical engineering jobs, more and more job openings you might find in things related to cloud computing, for example. So the landscape might change a little, but those are fields that a computer engineer are still completely capable of going into and making a career in. And so I would say that, especially in the software side of things, a lot of embedded systems these days are being developed. So I think the job prospects of our graduates and any computer engineering graduate are improving year by year. In terms of what that means for our students getting an ABET accredited computer engineering program. So as I mentioned, the ABET accreditation is a selective process. So getting this accreditation does mean that we have been vetted to have a quality education that is vetted by the same um, organization that vets the big universities like U of I, UIC, and the Northwestern, for example. Just a few statistics that result from this accreditation. That it does make us the only Catholic university in Illinois to have an ABET accredited computer engineering program. There's only 3 private universities in Illinois that has the ABET accredited computer engineering program, and we joined Northwestern and IIT on that list. As I mentioned before, there's 7 in Illinois that has ABET accredited computer engineering program, and that list consists of UIC, U of I, IIT, Northwestern, Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, and SIU Carbondale. And then we're the 7th for the computer engineering program. So I think effectively what that means is that they get the same quality of the program that is available in these large universities, but they can get it from a school that is that offers small class sizes, and we're able to work with our students in an individual basis.
That is so great to hear. I mean, I'm so impressed by the work that you and your colleagues have done to get us to this point, to be, in the conversation with Northwestern, IIT, and U of I. Christy, questions that you might have for Gina?
Well, I just maybe want to follow up a little bit on that last couple things you just said around what makes Lewis special. So you mentioned the small class sizes and things like that. Are there other elements to our computer engineering program that are unique from those other institutions that you mentioned?
Yeah, so all of these, websites like Best Value Schools, they do the surveys about what majors take the most time, the hardest majors, and engineering consistently comes out to be one of the hardest. And one of these surveys actually said that engineering students need to spend the most number of hours studying to succeed in the major more than all other majors. So at Lewis, we don't let our students sink or swim, and I think that is actually our distinguishing quality. I myself went to a large university, and basically you have to keep up or fail, right? But here we have small classes, and we're able to see how each of our student is doing and respond to those needs. So for example, in our department eCams, we have intensive tutoring available through the eCam study table. We also have engineering assistant to do some tutoring. Our faculty have open door policy pre-COVID, of course, where students can just drop in if they have any questions. As long as the door is open, they can come in, ask their questions. Dr. Klump has also been working with area companies to form partnerships for internships of our students. And this is because we saw from student performance that our students could really use more experience and hands-on and realistic environments. So that's the kind of response that we do in terms of looking at how our students are doing and responding to those needs. So as you saw, or as you heard before, our peers among the universities that have the ABET accredited computer engineering program are large universities in Illinois, and they might not have the same, they might not provide the same attention to individual students as we do. So I think that is that is a distinctive quality for our computer engineering program here at Lewis.
It's really great. So, Gina, one of the things that I'm interested in, I have to say that I have been so impressed by really the diversity of our faculty in the computer science program, the math program, and our broader sciences. Can you talk a little bit, I mean, as a woman who, has gotten her doctorate degree in engineering and electrical engineering, and obviously as a leader, as Dr. Sint talked about at the beginning, among all your colleagues, talk a little bit about what it takes to kind of change the perception for young women. I mean, if there were a 16-year-old woman, young woman who's whatever, going to Palatine High School right now and thinks, that's interesting to me. I do well in my math classes. I like physics, but it just doesn't feel right for me because do women really go into computer engineering? Can I design the next driverless car? The components that are inside that? Could you talk to me a little bit about how you think about that, how you talk to prospective students, and how you talk to our first-year students? If a young woman's coming out and she's currently a first-year student in your program, how are we special in that way? How do you, as a leader of the program, approach increasing the number of women in the field?
Right. So I completely, understand. I myself have had classes in my undergrad where I was the only woman in the class, and these days the percent of women in our program ourselves here is much lower than the men. Right now, we only have less than 5 women in the major right now, and I teach some classes where there were no women at all. So I think we are a long way to increasing that diversity and encouraging women to become engineers, to become not just computer engineers, but anything in the increasing diversity in the STEM fields. So this issue is dear to my heart, and I get involved with the Women in Engineering subgroup of IEEE. Chris mentioned earlier about the IEEE organization, and the Women in Engineering is a prominent subgroup within IEEE. And so I am active in helping them organize events, attending the events. Actually, last year, Women in Engineering, which is shortened to WE, had an event like an AI expo in Naperville, and I brought the 3 women majors that we had over there to spend the day with other professionals, the women professionals in the field. So I think that is important for them, especially when they find themselves in a major where they are, part of the minority, and they might find themselves as the only woman in the room. To meet other professionals and see those professionals, how they're doing, that they're doing completely fine. I think that really encourages them to stay in the major. And also, in terms of encouraging younger women to pursue this field, I think unfortunately there's also a very deep perception that engineering might not be for women. Like, obviously, I don't believe that, but there seems to be a perception like that, and that might be discouraging some women from going into the field. And so part of the reason why I also want to, I try to be active with IEEE is because we do a lot of outreach programs that encourage participation in STEM, and definitely outreach to young women to get into STEM and engineering programs is one of those events that we do. So, for example, there is I was part of organizing this event called the Science Kits for Public Libraries a couple years ago. and we organized a fundraising to help libraries get these kits where young girls, not just girls, but young kids can check out like books and they can do experimentation at home. And so that's the kind of thing that, it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy. I think, encouraging that interest right from when they are young will really help them keep that interest and pursue a field in engineering when they are ready to look for a college major.
Thank you so much. That's just inspiring on so many levels to hear you talk about that and hear your passion for that. I guess I have one other kind of area of inquiry to go down with you, which is sort of about the field itself. I'm curious what's going on in the future in the field in terms of what our students are going to be learning, but also your own research, and if you want to talk about the Internet of Things a little bit and where that field is evolving as we move forward. I know we'd all love to hear about that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So, as Chris mentioned, my main research interest is in Internet of Things. And, when people hear Internet of Things, they immediately think invasive technology. They're going to put sensors and cameras in our toothbrushes or toasters, and they're going to be in our homes watching our every move. And so there's part of what I am passionate about is, spreading the word of what it really means. The word Internet of Things. So what it is that we are trying to deeply integrate the physical aspect with computing. And I like to use the I like to use the phrase that our goal is to have a programmable world, right? It's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily bring up a good image. You might start thinking about, like Matrix or something like that. But all the advantages that come with that, I think, are really good to think of. So, for example, like forest fires, right? It's a very big problem right now. If we have embedded devices that can not only automatically sense that there's a fire going on, but we also have devices that are called actuators that can actually act upon the environment, that can automatically be triggered to address these the fires. Like for example, automated fire extinguisher that are actuated based on the processing of sensor data. Then these problems can be addressed, like much more quickly. So that's one of the big things that are popular in the field right now. We also hear a lot about cyber physical systems, robotics. That's always a big thing. Industry 4.0, meaning that we are trying to automate manufacturing as much as possible. And AI is another big thing. So all of these might just sound buzzwords, but it's completely in the realm of a computer engineer. A computer engineer studies both the hardware aspects, the software aspects, even the networking side of things, that they can really, become part of these these technologies that are, that form these buzzwords today. So that's my field. In terms of my own research, I am currently looking into having or establishing cooperation between IoT applications. The problem is that you have applications that are unaware of each other, but they act upon the same physical world. So you might have someone who has an application that tries to improve their driving safety, but a completely different application is unaware that that is the goal of that application. And so these conflicting applications, because they act upon the same world, the same physical environment, they might invalidate the optimal decisions of these applications. So the cooperation between IoT application is what I'm currently interested in focusing, and worked with our sponsored programs office over the summer to submit an NSF application on that.
It's exciting, so exciting. I don't think I was aware of that NSF application. Chris probably was. So, Gina, I guess it may be more of a comment than you can react to it, but one of the things that I love about places like Lewis, and you talked about it being the only Catholic university that does computer engineering, is you went through that, you raised several ethical issues. And I spent my life teaching ethics before I got into administration. What I love about a place like Lewis is a student can be studying computer engineering and the Internet of Things and the potential for autonomous vehicles or robots or the programmable world, as you said, let's program everything. And there might be somebody across campus who's teaching a class on social ethics that might be questioning whether artificial intelligence or robotics or autonomous vehicles are appropriate for society to invest in. And that conversation is great for students, right? And I know that this is a passion of Dr. Sintz, this possibility of having 4 or 5 fields talk to each other across the campus. And maybe in the spring we could have you back and one of our ethicists and have a conversation about programming everything, a programmable world, and the ethics of a programmable world, both on both sides, because I think this is what this interdisciplinary nature of a university and the ability to struggle with these really important issues while we're still pursuing the science of it and pursuing a better society is what has drawn me into the university for the last 30 years. I just love these kind of conversations. So I guess I'm grateful that you're raising these issues for our students and asking them to think about these things, but also learn how to actually make it happen, right? How do they bring it about? It's just a really exciting thing. And again, congratulations on the ABET accreditation. It's just very exciting.
Yeah, and listening to you talk about that, I do want to ask one more question that relates to that spirit of that you were talking about earlier around what makes Lewis special, the relational working with students one-on-one and being able to walk with them through their learning process, as well as the hands-on learning that you mentioned. But I also was just curious how you're doing this semester, how the students are doing. You mentioned bringing them to some of them to an event a couple weeks ago. I'm just curious, like, how the semester's going, and also, maybe the most important thing is, I'm assuming our majors know about this accreditation, and how are they feeling about that, and are they celebrating?
Yeah, so I guess first of all, about the event, that was actually last year. So just to clarify, there was no, we're not doing any physical events these days. Everything is online. The AI conference that I brought the 3 women majors that we currently have, that was last year. In terms of how I'm doing with the classes, so I have 2 main types of classes. One, computer science classes where you can completely do online, no problem at all. Even before the COVID thing happened, I simulcast my lectures, everything's recorded, and I use a tablet to write, to annotate on the slides. So actually for those classes, nothing has changed. It's kind of the same. At the same time, I also have classes that have hardware aspects. I have my intro to electrical and computer engineering class that has a lab component. And that has taken some time to adapt, and also for the students to get comfortable with the new format, because they do need to build circuits and demo those to me. So what they have to do is, on the times that they are not on campus, they have to take a webcam and point it to the breadboard and the circuit that they're building, and so I can see what they're doing and how they're actually connecting things. Luckily, the circuits that we're building, they don't involve high voltage or high current, so they're not really all that dangerous. They just use max the 9-volt battery, so it's okay. But especially for the freshmen who have never done any kind of circuits related lab before, have never even, that don't know what a breadboard is. The first lab was definitely a challenge because, especially if they were online, they really had very little idea on how to get started. And so I had to walk them through, like building their very first circuit ever. So that took that was a challenge to do, but now that we are 5 weeks into the semester, they have definitely gotten more comfortable. And I think everyone is getting the hang of how we can run our electronics labs online. So right now, I'm just, really grateful to the students who have been also very patient in, adapting to the new format of the classes. I don't know if I missed a question from you, Chris.
I wanted you to talk. You were telling us right before we went, before the show started, about how some of the students are promoting the accreditation. And I was if you want to share that a little more generally.
Yeah, our students are very excited. One of our students actually have taken on the role of marketing in LinkedIn. I just see posts from him in LinkedIn, saying, hey, we are one of the 7 computer engineering programs in Illinois, the only Catholic one in Illinois. And yeah, he could probably have double majored in marketing as well. He's very good. And so I also have students, actually before we received this accreditation, everyone in the major have been very invested in the results of this accreditation because they know that having this ABET accreditation affects them. A lot of the graduate programs require that they should have graduated from an ABET accredited engineering program. And also there are some jobs that require that you graduate from an ABET accredited program. So they have been invested in this process. They would occasionally ask me, hey, how's this going? And so they have been watching the process. And, as soon as I told them we got the accreditation, they were very happy with that news. And we also have an IEEE student branch, actually. So Chris, you were talking about the IEEE. We have a couple years ago, we established a student branch here at Lewis, and they are very active. They actually hold events like our code. What it is our students just volunteer to invite kids in the area to come in, and they get free tutorials of programming. And it's open to everyone. Prior to COVID, we would have parents bring in kids here so that our students can tutor for an hour programming. This semester, they're planning to hold that online. So that student group also have been, really be keeping up to date with the ABET accreditation process because most of the members are computer engineering students.
That's great. No, it's great. Gina, you're just incredibly impressive. I feel honored to have you as a colleague, and I really want to congratulate you for all the work you've done. And it's one of the things that I often say to donors. I talk to a lot of our alumni, but what you just said is something that I often say to them. Your degree from Lewis is worth more every year as we become a better institution. So somebody that graduated in 1990, as we become a place that has computer engineering, and not just computer engineering, but ABET accredited computer engineering, you're talking about somebody who might have graduated in 2018, who now their degree is worth more, even though they weren't here when the accreditation happened, because now they can apply to a certain graduate program or get a certain job. And I think that's true of so many of our alumni. I mean, we have 40,000 plus alumni out there. But, thanks for making Lewis a better place. You've really done great work to to improve who we are and improve our reputation in the community. And obviously, we will have more and more students who want to come here and study with faculty like you. So thanks for joining us today. Really been a privilege for Chris and I to have the conversation. So Chris, any last comments?
No, thank you so much, Gina. It's been great to be with you and an inspiration.
Thank you. Can I also just quickly thank everyone in my department? It is definitely not an individual effort. You know, my department chairs, Ray Klump and Cindy Howard, have been very supportive. The other faculty members in the program, I had to ask them assessment data on short notice sometimes, and they just turned around and gave me everything that needed. And everyone in the department also helped proofreading the paper, the 600 pages of papers that we had to submit. And so I just wanted to quickly thank them as well.
Absolutely. No, a great department, and thank you for all your work. So, you know, really glad to have you, Gina, and we'll look forward to maybe, you know, future conversations, but congratulations again to you, your colleagues, and your students. And I think with that, we can wrap up the show. So, you know, once again, thank you all for joining us. This was really a celebratory show. Really excited, and we have much more to brag about in future shows because there's so many exciting things going on campus. But, you know, I just wish all of you that are watching and all of you that will watch, you know, maybe in the next few days, you know, a wonderful week ahead, a great weekend, and many blessings to you and your family. Have a great week.